get going. Just some injury updates from Saturday. Jaquan right now I would say is probably questionable to doubtful going into Saturday's game. Right now we'll know a lot more today in practice. He was very limited yesterday in practice. We'll know more. But other than that, Kane back to what I would say is close to 100%. Tariq Milton certainly is fine. Practice and will be 100% for the game. And Colin Newell's the other one. And I probably know a lot more after today's practice than maybe what I knew yesterday. But probably is more like questionable for this game coming up. TCU, obviously a lot of respect for. I think probably one of the most talented teams right now in our conference across the board. They, very veteran defense. Obviously, as we know, Coach Patterson, outstanding on the defensive side of the football. Got some guys back up front from a year ago that were out, doing a great job defensively. And then on the offensive side of the football, really skilled. And, veteran offensive line, probably the most veteran offensive line in our conference. Certainly two outstanding senior running backs. And then, Max Dugan taking over at quarterbacks. Max done a great job coming in as a young quarterback, really talented football players we know as well. So with that said, I'll open up the questions you guys have for me.
What does Jaquan, probably not playing on Saturday, how does that alter things, if in fact it does? What changes does it make?
I think
Zach's been playing
loud. Yeah, I think we're really fortunate that that's an area where we've got great depth. And, like I said, Randy, I think the one thing about Zach is he's played the best of all of our defensive linemen up to this date anyway. So, Jaquan is a leader on our football team. Jaquan is a guy that if he's not able to play, I know Jaquan can still make a huge impact on this football team. But one way or another, no matter how it shakes out, that's an area where if we would have somebody go down, we feel really confident that the next man up will do a great job for us.
How would you assess your running game so far through the first 4 games this season? And I guess what you've seen so far, has it impacted, how balanced you can be so far?
Yeah, I think it's really hard just because the games have been so different. Obviously the Baylor game was, we got behind early in the football game. We had to play a different style offense, through the second, third, fourth quarter of the game. But, I think we're more consistent than we've been. Are we as consistent as we need to be? Probably not. But again, I think it's an area for us where we've got a lot of confidence in what we can do. Again, I think through the first 3 games, I'd say I was really confident. Obviously, in the 4th game, how that game played out, it was a little bit different. So I think the tail of the season and the next couple of games will hopefully tell us a lot more about where we're at in our running game.
Has Johnny emerged as kind of the guy you have the most confidence in?
I think Johnny's a guy that I've got great confidence in just because of that trust factor. I think he's a guy that when his number's been called, he's always been able to be the most consistent guy. I still think there's really good competition there right now at the running back spot. I think practice is really important, and who practices the best is going to get the best opportunities come Saturday. So, until somebody really separates themselves from the rest of the pack, I think it's hard to just come out and say that's our guy. But Johnny's one of those guys that's got elite trust by all of our coaches in our program.
What about the middle linebacker spot in your guys' defense allows whoever is playing there to have success? And you think back the last couple of years, guys, interesting situations that they get put into. What allows people to pop kind of in advance now, especially in that role? Yeah,
I just think the ability to be, in the middle of everything is really big. And when you got the guys that we have up front that we're able to funnel a lot of things to those linebacker positions, I think that's really big. And Orion is like Mike was a year ago, is one of those football players that he's earned the right through practice to play really confident and play really well. And Orion's one of those guys as well that's got the ability to run sideline to sideline and tackle people, and he's got great length. But he's also one of our best blitzers. He's a guy that's got the ability to make plays in the backfield because he's got great instinct. So, I think a lot of that too has got to go on to what he's worked really hard to do and become as a leader on our team and as the Mike linebacker on our football team. So, I think both of those things, that position gives you a lot of opportunity, and then you got to take advantage of the opportunity when they come your way.
Is there a trait that you look for with a guy there? Anything that really kind of is the first thing?
Yeah, well, I think number one is you got to be able to tackle. you know, and you gotta be able to be a guy that can run sideline to sideline, and you gotta be able to be that guy that can tackle in space. And, you know, that guy gets some of those tackles aren't flush, they're not flush in the hole, sometimes it's in the C gap or the D gap, so you gotta be able to do those things well. And, you know, we're fortunate we got a lot of guys, or two guys that have shown to do it really well for us.
This is kind of two questions pertaining to each line, but one was with Will McDonald. I think you guys moved him back on the depth chart at least. Is that because of Baylor, or is that just something that was coming to give you a pass rush? And then if Newell comes back this week, or whether it's 2 weeks, do you guys take a step back and re-look at the whole offensive line and figure out who fits where, or does it just go back to normal?
Yeah, Will McDonald, you know, I think we continue to tinker with to use his talents the best way we possibly can, you know, and obviously Will's got ability that we got to continue to find ways to get on the football field, and I think that's the biggest thing we've tried to do defensively. And, you know, whether it's at linebacker, whether it's him standing up at the Mike or the Will or the Sam, or whether it's him putting his hand down at times on the defensive line, getting him on the field to affect the game is important for us. The O-line piece of it, you know, I think it's one of those situations where what's best for this football team, you know, and, you know, however that looks or whatever that feels like, putting our best five is our responsibility for this team to be the best version of itself it can be. So I think that's what it'll be once Colin's healthy and shown to be healthy, and then we'll kind of evaluate where's the best five offensive line, and what's the best version of us we can put ourselves out there.
We've all talked a lot about the success you guys have had in October the last 2 years. When you look at that, do you see it as coincidence or a fluke of circumstance, or is there something about the trajectory of the season that has you guys playing better or your best football after 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, you know, it's a good question. I don't know, you know, like I think every year is so different, and you know, you look back on the last couple of years where I do think the common trend for us is we've gotten better every game. And you know, one of the things I really like about this team and my confidence in this team is this team has gotten better. And so I think that's a common trend for us, is that you see our team continue to get better as the season goes. But you know, a little bit of it is counting it on wins and losses is tough, because obviously that's your job and everybody else's job. But like my job is, man, are we getting better all the time? And I really see this team and have seen our teams over the last 3 years really get better as the season goes on. And all I do know is that gives you a chance to win football games as the season continues to wear on. So, you know, I probably a little bit of happenstance and a little bit of, you know, the Iowa State Cyclone football team gets better as the season goes. And if we can continue to do those things, you hope to continue to put yourself in great situations to have success. So, good question.
Kind of a two-part question. You mentioned Max before. What stuck out to you guys about him while you were recruiting him, and then after some initial struggles, is it surprising to you at all that he's been able to turn it around and have some success here as a true freshman?
No, you know, I'm a big fan of Max. I was through the recruiting process. You know, got to know Max, his family really well. Got a great dad. Dad obviously is high school football coach. He got great success over there. Led his team to the Dome. They did a lot of great things. So, you know, for Max, you know, it's a lot of respect of who he is, and him going somewhere else doesn't change my appreciation for who he is. And you know, I think the thing about watching Max is you watch him continue to do the things that I thought was really impressive in high school. He never panics, plays with really good poise, and you can see him being a great asset to that team, because they've got a lot of great skilled players as well as those two great running backs. And so you see him have the ability to distribute the football when it's time to distribute the football. And so I think he's been a huge asset to them in terms of their offensive production, how they're doing things. And I think he'll only continue to do great things for that offense and that football team.
Matt, as a teacher, first and foremost, how do you balance dealing with an offense that consistently moves the ball, hardly ever goes 3 and out, that bogs down inside the 45, just in terms of they're not defined by bogging down inside the 45, accentuating positive, but also fixing negatives?
Yeah, you know, I just think it's one of those things for us is just continuing to, you know, pound away at, you know, what are those reasons why, you know, we're not finishing some of these drives. You know, I think the thing about the offensive piece of it, and I know I said this earlier, is, man, it's such a young group. You know, it's a group that's still evolving and trying to find their niche and who they are. And that's what's been fun about that group too, because every week you see a different guy stepping up and being a big time playmaker. on that offense. And so I really feel like it's a growing process on the offensive side of the football. It's a group that's going to continue to get better as the season goes. It's a group that I think has done probably surpassed our expectations in a lot of ways, and a group that, for the betterment of our football team, needs to continue to grow and get better in some other areas as we continue on this season. But I think it's teaching and showing, here's what we're doing really well, here's some of the areas we've got to continue to work to fix, and then going to work at it. And that's what I do like about this group. They understand that, and take great pride in understanding the value of what needs to get fixed to better our football team.
And you talk about margin for error being extremely small with this team in the Big 12. You got another tough opponent this week that keeps those margins tight. What emphasis points do you have heading into this week that really need to be addressed in your opinion?
Well, I just think our football team, somewhere along the way, and I don't think it's anybody's fault, but it's who we are right now, where we've won a lot of games maybe in the last 2 years in those margins. Well, if you look back at our last 6, 7, 8 games that we've played, we've seemed to lose some games in the margins. And I think you see a better football team, but yet you see a team that those margins are still. And I think sometimes we get we're so excited because we're better and there's expectations, but you still got to win in the margins. You still got to. We're -4 in the turnover margin, and that's really hard. I don't know. You got to probably be pretty special to overcome -4 at this point in the turnover margin. We can't do those things. We got to figure out how, why, and back to understanding those value systems are still really important for us to have success. Critical down and distances, 3rd down, 4th down offense, 3rd down, 4th down defense. You look at the past couple games, those things are still really important. When we do those things well, we seem to have great success. When we don't, it's a great challenge. And now you're doing it against a team that's probably in our conference, probably the best at 3rd and 4th down offense, 3rd and 4th down defense, and obviously the turnover margin, they're up near the top. So I think a really good challenge for us, and it's a great opportunity for us to just take the next step as a football team. But to me, it's one of those things our kids understand, we understand as coaches, and we just keep doing a great job of trying to make sure that we know how we win football games here at Iowa State.
As you said, Matt, you guys have a really young group this year, and you only have 2 3-and-outs on the season. How much does that help you, and what's it say about this group?
Yeah, I think those values are good values. Obviously, at the end of it, you want to score points, and that becomes probably the greatest value you can have. But I think you'll want to see growth. And to me, in 4 games, we've seen great growth on the offensive side of the football. And doing it with a young quarterback and doing it, with some young skill players around him. But there's still a lot of growth to continue to grow. And that part's going to be really fun to watch this group continue to take ownership of what it's got the ability to become. So, I enjoy watching that group continue to grow right now. It's really fun from my end of it to watch that group take ownership of what they're doing.
On the 3rd down defense, what have been some of the challenges that have maybe led to you guys being not as successful as maybe you'd like to be? How do you maybe start to correct some of those over the course of these next couple of weeks?
Yeah, well, a little bit of it, you got to give some credit to, some of the guys making plays, the teams that have made plays against us, the quarterbacks that have made plays, 3 of the last 4 games we played really mobile quarterbacks, guys that can, not only hurt you in the passing game, but hurt you with their feet. And I think those are areas where you look back on some of our opportunities to get off the field, and not getting off the field in some of those critical moments. It's been maybe a run here or it's been a pass here. And so when those things happen, you got to go back to, it's not scheme, it becomes detail. And what allows us to get back to the fundamentals and details that allow us to be successful in those critical moments. And that's our sport anyways. It's never a schematic issue unless it's too much. It's a why are we not giving our kids the opportunity fundamentally and detail-wise to be successful in those situations. And I think that's been our biggest address, is taking a look at that and seeing where we got to continue to fix to put our guys in the best situation to be successful.
Matt, going back to last year, what was the talking amongst the coaches during the week of the TCU game about whether or not to use Brock? Because he did play the next game.
Yeah.
Was that under consideration at all during the week?
And I obviously I don't remember a whole lot about that week other than getting prepared for this defense. But you know, I think the biggest thing was it really wasn't. You know, I think we played Akron maybe the week before prior to that game. Brock played a little bit in that football game, and you know, going on the road and playing a really challenging football team. You know, Zebit played pretty good at Oklahoma, was solid against Akron, and then felt like that was certainly our best chance going into TCU. Now that week in practice, what I would tell you, and I think this is what sparked it for us the next week, was Brock was incredible. And I think we do a 2-minute drill on Wednesdays, good on good, and Brock's leading the team down the field, and it's like, whew, like, this guy's pretty good. And continuing to push us to say, man, should we get this guy into the football game? But going into that specific game, I would tell you, I don't remember that conversation being like, man, we got a plan for Brock to be in that game. That did not happen last year.
What he did on the Wednesday then, was that before TCU or before Okie State?
It was before TCU, and I think that's where, as we came back on Sunday, saying, we got to give this young guy an opportunity to get on the field and help this team be successful.
What's it been like for you to see Bobby McMillan have a little bit more of a healthier year and be able to get out on the field in that linebacker rotation and not just be a guy that's solid on special teams for you?
Yeah, I think Bobby's one of the great stories of our senior class. A guy that has had a lot of adversity, multiple injuries, probably could have retired, could have said, man, I'm going to go start the real world, and instead has worked through those injuries and come back and help this football team immensely. And from what he's done for this team prior to on special teams, and in some moments right now he's on our kickoff team, he's on our punt team, helping us immensely, but getting those valuable reps, and not only just one, he's playing Mike, he's playing Sam, I think he's invaluable to what we're doing on the defensive side of the football. But, a lot of credit to him, and certainly a great story of our football team right now, perseverance.
I think special teams have been kind of key in this matchup in recent years, and they got Rieger now, who's had a touchdown. I think he's had a couple big ones, one called back. What's the biggest challenge in directional punting and just different things you have to do this week?
Shoot. Yeah, that guy's good. You're from there, and I think it playing TCU, it's one of those deals for them that they are outstanding on the special team side of things. And, in their return game, both their kickoff return and their punt return game, they do a great job. And so the number one thing is we're going to have to prepare to do a great job in our coverage units of tackling. No matter what you say about how you directional punt or want to do that, the fact of the matter is there's still opportunity for those guys to make plays on the ball and do things with the ball in their hands. And especially in the punt game, I think that's a great challenge. So for this group, we're going to have to be our best, and that's something that I think we know that going into it, and continuing to find ways to make sure our coverage units are in position to be successful, and then when we're in position to make great plays on the ball.
In the running game, how important is it to find one guy like Johnny or whoever to carry the load, or are you comfortable maybe running 3 or more backs for the rest of the season?
Yeah, no, obviously, I think every year and every situation is different. You're going to put whatever gives your team the best situation to have success. And right now, I think it's been a all-in mentality, because that mentality is really either somebody separating themselves, or guys do things really well and making sure they're in when those situations occur. But it'll be really interesting to see how the season emerges and who emerges as that position. But I think it's a tough question, because we'd all love David Montgomery. Yeah, David Montgomery, and David Montgomery's a great player. But now you're kind of trying to figure out who is that guy, what is that situation for you. And we've been fortunate that some guys have stepped up and did some great things for us so far. Has that guy, one single person emerged yet? They haven't.
Couple parts to this. Number one, when did you decide to switch your weekend practices to Monday instead of Sunday? What does that allow you to do, and just maybe what the benefit of that could be?
Yeah. Kind of going into the season, we talked about it, and then I think the biggest thing for us is giving our team that value of when they come into practice on Monday, having the ability to have some of the game plan ready for them, and giving them some feedback. One of the things I really appreciate about our team, we're here Sunday morning early, we get long flight back on Saturday night, and over 3/4 of our football team is in here watching the video. And I think today with the access to video, with our guys' investment in our culture right now, our kids are here 24/7, that I'd rather give them some value on Monday when we finally come in, so we have the opportunity to give them something in terms of a game plan and what the expectation is going to be through the week, rather than waiting and kind of meeting on Sunday and not giving them anything on Monday. So that was probably my biggest thing. Not much has really changed, and from a development standpoint, I think it's been really good too, because we've been able to get a really good lift in and then have the opportunity to get a quality practice Monday night with our developmental team.
Was that just the last couple of weeks that you started doing?
It has been, yep.
Shantay's a guy who now is statistically a top 10 receiver in school history. And was there, I guess the best way to put it, he obviously is a guy who was behind some other guys for good reason, but two guys that were really good.
Yeah.
What has he meant to the program, just with the way that he's kind of been always in the shadows, but now he's kind of getting his moment to shine a little bit?
Yeah, again, I think a really good question, and we've got so many good examples of that in this program over the last 3 years, of guys that have bided their time, continue to work really hard at their craft, and when their opportunity to shine has come, they've taken advantage of it. And Shantay is no different, and Shantay's made really good plays for us. I remember the first play he makes, and I don't know, maybe it's the Baylor game, our first year here, and he catches that ball over the middle and scores a touchdown as a freshman. To the play against Baylor last year in the end zone, and it's a huge touchdown. The thing you appreciate about Shantay is when his number has gotten called, when the ball has gone to him, he's made a play. And now he's become that guy as more of a, how do we get the ball to number 8 in critical moments. And I think it continues to be a great example for the players in the program. It's trust-based. Trust is both how you carry yourself and your actions off the field, but then also how you carry yourself and your actions on the field. And you kind of continue to build a bank of trust, and once you build it and you own it, then your opportunities really maximize. And that's what Shantay is doing. It's really fun to watch, because knowing that young man so well, knowing what he's about, knowing what he stands for, it's really enjoyable to watch him flourish his senior year. And if your seniors are playing their best football their senior year, your team's got a chance to have great success, and he's giving us that right now.
Man, I know it's a couple thousand miles away, but California's allowing student athletes to make money off the name and likeness, hiring an agent. What kind of impact do you foresee that having on the NCAA, if at all, right now?
Yeah, again, that's a really good question, and one I'd probably love to dive into if we weren't in the middle of this and I could think about it, and I only say that because I've always had probably different thoughts on it, and probably at times, like all of you, my thoughts have varied one way or swung both sides of the fence on it. I think that's something this offseason me and you can do a great piece on it, and let me think about it so I can give you a good answer instead of a bad answer right now.
Matt, 21 points, 21 straight points in the fourth. What does it say about that team? When they do face adversity, how do they kind of triumph through, and they took the lead in the fourth?
Yeah, honestly, it's why to me, I've said this, I'll continue to say this until it changes. Like, I've got no shame or disappointment in our football team right now. Our kids have played really hard. Our kids continue to grow and get better. It was warm out on Saturday, okay? Our kids fought through it, and it's funny to me that we play our best football when probably everybody had counted us out and everybody had dropped us. And so we're down 20-0, our kids fight back, our offense is able to score points, our defense is able to stop, make huge stops, and you know what, we ran out of a little bit of time, and didn't give them credit, they made a couple plays at the end of the football game to win it. But at the end of it, it's still about fight. It's still about attitude and effort, and it's still about giving yourself a chance to win football games. And when you don't win them, you figure out how you didn't, and you go back to work to fix them. But to me, I think it says a whole lot about the character of this team, what it's about, what it stands for, and certainly what it's got the ability to do. And that's why they tell the story at the end of the season. They don't really tell the story in the fourth week of the football season, even though that's your job.
And then second, 7-0 in the month of October. Kind of what is that? Is that just your team getting better as the season goes on, or that's kind of left at the draw?
Yeah, I know we talked a little bit about that earlier. I just think it's one of those situations where you hope part of it is that our football team has gotten better as the seasons have wore on the last couple of years. but I also think it's one of those situations where, you know, you want to be playing your best football as November comes around, and hopefully that's something that this team can continue on going forward.
Where do you, Jairell and Reese kind of in the running back situation? Is there still room for possibly redshirting both those guys this year?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. We got 5 guys, I think 5. Sheldon, Kane, Johnny, Reese, and Jairell. And all 5 go to practice every day, and the best players play on Saturday. And those guys get a lot of reps. So, you know, I don't foresee those 5 players not being in the mix to go to practice every day and not be the best player for this team to be successful. And so, honestly, you know, I see those 5 guys continue to compete every day. And that's maybe something we could think about maybe at the end of October. But, boy, you know, the competition's too close to count anybody out right now.
All right, Coach, thank you.